welcome to Geopolitical Trends. My name is David Walalu. So good to be with you guys on this Saturday. Very, very excited to be here because I am going to expand on the topic of New Zealand. A lot of you made comments about wanting me to elaborate more on this, and as I give you my word that I will do so. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So before I'll delve deeper into any of that, like always, I like to extend my sincere thanks to the channel's members and supporters. And I'm going to give a shout out to the new two supporters, Yusuf W. Perbo. Thank you very much for becoming a supporter of the channel. And I also want to give a shout out to Stephen M. Lowe. Thank you very much for becoming a supporter. And thank you, Stephen, because I always read your comments on both channels. So I'm very, very grateful to that. Thank you very much. So, and for you guys, if this is your first time landing here, please make sure to subscribe to this channel. So we are now at about 66 members. As I told you, once we reach 100, I'm going to do an exclusive Q&A in addition to one surprise for the members. So just join in. Let's hit that number quick here and so we can move on. I have two announcements for you before I'll delve deeper into this topic today. So the first one is the conversation I'm going to be having with my guest, Robert. I call him Robbie. He's a friend. Robbie Barwick. So it's going to be on Monday at 2000 hours. So, and by the way, it was someone who put some nasty comments about my guests. So please be respectful and be mindful. So I usually give it second chance for, we all make mistakes, but my guests are my guests. So please show some respect. Second thing I want to share with you is I'm going to be doing a video about India again. Yes, I will. Again, nothing against India. No. This one has to do with there is a conversation going on right now inside India about a no confidence vote on Modi. Yeah. So I'm going to dig deeper into this and I'm going to do a video for you guys. So, all right, let's get into our topic here because there's a lot to cover, but I'm going to just focus on the big picture. Of course, we need to mention at least the history of New Zealand, the geography to a degree, but what I'm focusing on here is the geopolitical iBird's view to understand the dynamics as to where New Zealand is coming from regarding the recent decision. Well, and that begs the question to three main questions. The first one is why the foreign minister, not the prime minister, is the foreign minister, Nanaia Mahuta, sort of made that decision. What was behind that decision? So was it economic? Was it strategic? And the other thing we're going to think about or also ask is what lies ahead? Because I am sure, as you do know, and I'm sure you do think that way as well, that there might be some consequences to that decision. So we shall see. And this is one of the things we're going to delve deeper into this. So if I'm to put my geopolitical analyst hat, I'm going to look at this under the geopolitical microscope that is. So, because to me, this was sort of a stark display of independence. That's how I see it. And like Australia, this is a stark display of independence, independent resolve that New Zealand foreign minister demonstrated. So by pulling the plugs on joining AUKUS pact. So many are left hanging on the thread of uncertainty because that is the key that's going to be now looming large as to the uncertainty of it. So, and the uncertainty because the power that be indulged in a geopolitical chess game. So, as a geopolitical analyst, I will ask, does her decision echo the sentiments of New Zealanders? Or is it merely a ploy in the vast network of Chinese trade? Yeah, that's something you need to consider, given the economic relationship between New Zealand and China. And I will touch on that one as I move forward. So basically, as humans, we think in terms of our restless anxiety now. Feels on the, or sort of feeds rather, on the questions, because those are unanswered questions. So questions that deserve immediate answers or clarity, if I may say. So what's undeniable, in my opinion, is that the shifting tectonic plates of power in the Pacific, it's a game with a singular spine chilling target. And we all know what that objective and that target is. Can anybody tell me what it is? Let me see if you guys can type in. What is that chilling and the objective of that? It is only one, and it is only one. Let me see. Jack Robert, China. You're absolutely correct, Jack. It's encircling China. That's what it is. So, as we watch now these world leaders dance around their global playground, because that's how we will be considered geopolitically, we can't help but feel the sort of what's the word I'm looking for here? The cold age, if I may use the term, of resentment of our involuntary role in this great spectacle. Yeah, because that's how I would look at it as an analyst. So after all, is the cost of our peace in this grand political gambit and chess game? Yeah, because this is how I look at it. So this is like almost an overview of what you have to be thinking about in terms of placing the decision of the foreign minister. Let me say first, thanks to Anna Kiblis, thank you so much for your super sticker. Truly appreciate it. So, as I said, you're going to have to think in terms of the big picture. But to understand the big picture, geopolitically, of course, you're going to have to touch on the basics. So, what am I referring to here? First of all, we need to understand who is the foreign minister. And I have a link for you guys that I will share with you later on as I move forward. Nanaia Mahuta, I hope I'm pronouncing correctly. So you have to understand her background. And I know there are some in New Zealand, believe it or not, they don't see eye to eye with her. So to them, to some individuals in New Zealand, she's no hero. And I'm not talking about this here, whether hero or not. That is not what I'm talking about. I am talking about the geopolitical outcome of a decision she made and what was behind it. So as to the internal dynamics inside New Zealand, I don't know. I don't live there. I'm not from there. So I'm looking at a different picture here. So her family is related to the Maori king and its movement, which goes all the way back. And by the way, not all Maori recognize this institution. This is why. And by the way, when I put the title on the thumbnail for this, and I said, my people first, I wasn't referring, I know I saw a comment, somebody thought that I was referring, and of course I welcome your comments and all that, because that's what we are here for, to learn from each other. I wasn't referring to her people, the Maori. No. I was referring to New Zealand, New Zealanders in general. So Maori were not a united people back then. So the seat of power amongst Maori were of the Hapu and clan, that is. So unlike for example, the Turks, every warrior was a chief. So this is some sort of little bit of background. So the bloodline in this context plays a role. You see this within monarchies in the Middle East, for example. Saudi Arabia, the bloodline will have to be in line with who is the next king or whatever, except for the current crown prince who might become a king One thing that a lot of people do not know in the Western world, and I wrote a book about Saudi Arabia, so I had to dig deeper, is that he is yes, from the bloodline from his dad, but he's not from his mom, because his mom is from a different tribe altogether. And this issue of tribes tends to be a big issue and big deal. It's no different than it was back then in New Zealand, with one bloodline known as the Rangatira. So this is why it's very, very important. Let me share a picture with you about the foreign minister herself, right there. There we go. That's her picture. And by the way, it's a sacred tattoos. That's part of the history of the Maori. So here's the thing. Mahuta was about, give or take her age, around 30 years old. Yeah, she was about 30 at that time. Mahuta was one of 30 Maoris and Pacific Islander students at an all-girl Anglican school. And at the time, it was a South African rugby team was touring New Zealand. So dividing the country into the process, because there were those who were against South Africa and those who were in favor of South Africa. And you will know why. So the schoolgirl at that time had no idea of what was soon sort of to become one of the largest civil disturbances in New Zealand history. Yeah. So history. Yeah. Disturbances in New Zealand history. So she could not stomach the fact that her school had offered to host a group of South African students, a decision she felt validated apartheid, the apartheid at the time in South Africa. That was one of the reasons why it divided New Zealand into two. So rather than simply dealing with it, she skipped school in protest. So as a Maori, women there is an embedded sense of social justice and striving for equality of opportunity and indigenous advancements. So why am I sharing all this with you? To put this within the context of her decision about not wanting to join AUKUS. She shut the door. And so it was a quote that I found, a quote: if you've been brought up in a Maori community, you will have experienced some form of some form of mistreatment and an extreme level of racism, end of quote. So, of course, Mahuta was the daughter of Sir Robert Tikotahi Kanga. I hope I pronounce it correctly. So he was the adopted son of the Maori king, Koroki. So Mahuta grew up assisting her father in key treaty negotiations. So this is why it's very important to understand her political background. She's been around. So she has spent almost half of her life in parliament, having first won a seat at the age of 26. So in 2016, Mahuta became the first woman to display a moko kawe, which is the sacred facial tattoo. That's what you see on her chin in parliament. So it's very, very impressive. But again, all this is important, but that is not where the issue is that we need, or the questions that we need to answer, is what led to her decisions. So, and here's the thing: also you need to understand about the position of foreign ministers in New Zealand, not the prime minister, foreign minister. Foreign affairs ministers tends to be seen as a sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Gold watch, if I may use the term, for a long service. That's why. Or it's also given as a favor to friends and allies, you know. But for Mahuta, this doesn't fit into that category, and there is no sort of a sense that the prime minister owes her anything. This is why it's important. It's important to understand these dynamics. So, because the cultural upbringing, the values, the whatever term you want to use, do play a role into how someone conducts him or herself. So, and here is one thing that I need you to understand. Let me share a picture with you, because I was learning through all this. By the way, guys, it's a very fascinating. I was learning through all this process. So the interesting thing is that Mahuta is proud of being a Maori and says that as a Maori woman, she has an embedded sense of social justice. That is true. That is true, and this is why there's the display for women, because it's part of their culture, part of the indigenous tribe mindset. That is so. Mahuta herself, the foreign minister, is seen as an unassuming character. She's not one that will play to the winds of where the geopolitical wind are blowing. Unlike, for example, her neighboring prime minister, the incompetent Albo, because he's just playing with wherever the wind is blowing. So despite her longevity in politics, she has never been in a spotlight, and I'll admit it. I didn't hear much about her before. Yes, I get an idea about the cabinet, the prime minister, most of the time, like the previous one, Jacinda Ardern, which I will talk to her about the horrible policies she has committed. So the position of the foreign minister holds, in addition to responsibility for local governments and Maori affairs, and that's where she started at. And she was, of course, appointed by the former Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern's government. That is where her background comes in. Let me share also some pictures with you guys to see. This is how they salute, I guess. This one is part of. This is like. Her background, mostly in domestic affairs, was dealing with the previous domestic affairs minister of the Maori and local government. This is how they greet each other. So it's a culture, it's tradition. They do the same, similar to that in the Middle East. By the way, guys, in some countries, they touch the nose to nose. Yeah, that close. It's just part of the culture. That's how the culture is. So the interesting aspects of all this is that the decision for this, for Maui to embark on this unilateral, because it's unilateral, but it didn't happen in a vacuum. Why it didn't happen in a vacuum? It's because you had a visit. So you had let me, hold on a second. Before I'll jump into this, let me get into the history of New Zealand, because it's important to understand this one. Then I'll dive into the analysis part. So, and I'm going to go back very briefly, guys, because I can't go back all the way to the 12th century. That's just too long. So we'll go back to around 1300 AD. Polynesian settlements of New Zealand. That's how it goes back. So, and it is believed, and I have some photos here that I found. It is believed that Polynesian settlers used subtropical weather systems to find their way from their native islands in Polynesia to New Zealand. That's how fascinating and interesting. I found it very, very interesting. So what they did as the settlers, colonized the country. Okay, they developed their distinctive Maori culture. So according to Maori, the first Polynesian explorer to reach New Zealand was Kupe, who traveled across the Pacific in a Polynesian-style voyaging canoe. That's why canoes is a big deal there in the islands. So this thought, it was thought that Kupes reached New Zealand at a Huikinia harbor in northern land. Let me show you a map here, guys, because I was able to get one and to show you. This is where in northern islands, that's where he came in first, according to the records here that I found. So, which was about 1,000 years ago. So the history of New Zealand, is some sort of dates back to between 1320 and 1350 CE, when the main settlement period started after it was discovered by Kupe and settled by Polynesian. I have an image here of the signature of the treaty. Fast forward here. So with the locals, so of course those are the colonizers that came in from Europe, including the Dutch. So the Polynesians who developed the distinct Maori culture, as I mentioned earlier. So, and by the way, like other Pacific cultures, if you are from that part of the world, I'm sure I'm just sort of expressing how the culture is. Maori society was centered on kinship links and connection with the land. That's why the land means a lot to them. Something in the West we don't understand much. We don't understand there's a relationship to the earth, for example, to nature and so forth. And this is one of the things that and New Zealand has been taking stand on this, despite there are some other side that I am going to talk about. And New Zealand is no saint either. So let's just put this to rest, you know. But at the same time, you're going to have to provide the arguments as is supposed to be. So the reason why they don't want to get involved in AUKUS is because they don't want to be dragged into this nuclear apparatus that now the US has already pushed into the Australia, which Australia, by way of return, surrendered its sovereignty. So this is why I'm going to have a conversation with Robbie Barwick on Monday. He's from there. He's a political figure. He understands the ins and outs, and he has a lot to say about this. So there is now, right now, a petition going on in Australia that is against AUKUS. Yeah, we don't hear much about it. So this is just to bring back the idea of how Maori culture thinks of this, and where Mahuta herself, why he made that decision. So fast forward to the first European explorer known to visit New Zealand was none other than the Dutch, by a navigator by the name Abel Tasman. Now, why is this important? Because Tasman Sea is the one that separates New Zealand from Australia. And I have a map, not a map, but rather this one right here. I'll show it to you guys. Right here, Tasman Sea. That was named after the guy that separates New Zealand from Australia. And it is very important to understand geography and understand the history, because they play a role into this. So in December 1642, that's when he reached that part of the world. So in 1643, he chartered the west coast of the North Island, and his expedition then sailed back to Batavia without setting foot on a New Zealand soil. Then who came after him? It was none other than the British explorer James Cook, who reached New Zealand in 1769. I just find it very important for you guys to understand all this, because it's very, very important. So now let's get into exactly what do you think, in your opinion, that prompted her to shut the door on AUKUS. Yeah, let me hear. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me read, rather. Let me read your answer on the chat box if you can. Just like to get your opinion on this because we're here to converse and learn from each other. What do you think, in your opinion, that prompted her to shut the door? Really, shut it on this AUKUS. So let me take a look, see what any of you has wrote something, and I will get into the detail. Oh, you're absolutely correct, Cam. Arabi is a third-party leader. Yeah, citizen party. So, and knowing what I know about the guy, he will be a good PM for Australia. So, the likes of Paul Keaton, which, by the way, I'm trying to reach out to Paul Keaton to invite him on this channel if he will be willing to come on the air. So let me see what your answer is. In your opinion, what do you think prompt her to shut the door on security deal stops New Zealand trade with China? AUKUS was an economic aspect. So yeah, let me see what you guys think. And I know it takes a while before this shows up here as far as your answer here. ACE, ACE or A, yes, economy. That's one. That is true. That is true. Economy, it's very, very important. Correct, Jack. AUKUS has no economic aspects. Couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. But here is the interesting aspect, and I am going to share it with you. Let me first share a picture because I always like to show you the picture first, then you put it within the context. Yeah, of this guy, the incompetent elbow, prime minister. We call him prime minister because he's a prime minister, but I also add incompetent. Yeah, it's this guy here, prime minister elbow. So why is this important? Well, it is important because in May, he made the trip to New Zealand. I was aware of the trip, but I couldn't make a video on it because I was overseas and I couldn't confirm certain information. And the trip was on the 25th, if I am not mistaken, of between 23rd and 25th of May. I was still overseas, but so I didn't have access to what I usually get access to, ensure the accuracy of the information. But I kept it. I kept it for it, and here it is. It came handy. This is one thing you learn about research. And when you research things, you don't disregard because that's how, especially in the world of geopolitics, work. Well, just to make story short here. So the prime minister, the incompetent elbow, made a official visit to New Zealand. Okay. And guess what were the two main things to address with the New Zealand government? Of course, he addressed them with the prime minister, not the foreign minister. Pay attention here, guys, because the foreign minister works under the leadership of the prime minister. In other words, the prime minister has the final say. So what were the two key elements? They were trade and security. And guess what was the third? The third was China's ambition in the Pacific. They had to talk about this one. I find it very interesting. Why it's interesting is because when the visit was in May, and when was the visit of the U.S. Secretary of State, which was only a week and a half ago. But also, it was about right after the commission of the USS Canberra submarine. You see the dynamics here. So the trip first of the Prime Minister incompetent elbow to New Zealand in May 23rd of this year, of course, to pave the conversation about three topics: trade, security, and China. Fast forward to about 2 weeks ago with the visit of the Secretary of State to New Zealand, or a week ago, rather, okay? And also a week ago was also the commissioning of the USS Canberra. All of this fall within the right pattern chronologically, because what Australia the reason why the PM Albo went to New Zealand is to test the waters to see whether New Zealand, they just wanted to sort of feel the vibes if New Zealand will go along with Australia or not. That was the purpose of the visit. It wasn't about the care for trade and all that. It's because Australia understands that New Zealand has good trade arrangements with China. And also New Zealand saw what happened to Australia after China shut the door on the trade. So to them was, duh, it's no brainer. Why should we get involved? Even though, and hypothetically, even if New Zealand would have joined AUKUS, the trade will still be okay with the China. But New Zealand didn't want to take a risk. It wasn't about fear of China. It wasn't about, no. It's about being smart and having a smart diplomacy. That's what it's about. So when the prime minister went over there, the incompetence Albo, so of course he will go and he talked about the celebrating the 80th anniversary of the diplomatic relations between the two countries. That's been 80 years since they established them, but separated from the Tasman Sea. This is where there's two. Is still Prime Minister incompetence Albo was aiming at something else. He wants to strengthen the relationship with the New Zealand. This is during his conversation with Chris Hipkins. Chris Hipkins is the Prime Minister of New Zealand. But what's interesting is that since the start of July, it's been easier for New Zealand to sort of now move forward as far as its trade with both countries, Australia and China for that matter. As a matter of fact, New Zealand and Australia signed what they call the free trade agreement back in 2009. That's how far back it goes. In addition to the one with ASEAN, with the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, But still, the major trade that New Zealand has, it has with China, not Australia. So to them now, to New Zealand, trading with Australia is irrelevant. It's because what do they have to trade anyway? Their economy is sinking to the bottom. So what made also, from a geopolitical perspective, this is why it's important to see the big picture. Mahuta also was aware of the agreement that China made with the Solomon Islands, because that's also not only for security, but also for trade. Okay? So what it's ended up being is that you get now voices inside Australia, like, for example, Blaxland, he's a professor at the University Center or something like this in Australia. Actually, he's a professor, John Blaxland, from Australian National University, which usually operates like a think tanks for the government to pursue or to push certain agenda. So what he said, and I put this in quote, we are facing what I would describe as unrestricted competition. China has not given up. China is playing the long game. China has considerable interest, economics and other interests, strategic interests in the Pacific that go beyond the Solomon Islands, and they are enduring, and they happen to rob us against the interest of Australia and New Zealand and other partners like the United States. End of quote. You can read between the lines. You can see that the narrative is being pushed in one direction. And what a best way to do it, by sucking in New Zealand into this. They couldn't do it with the Solomon Islands because Solomon Islands pushed back. So, and this is what happened because Australia's left-leaning government, the one was elected in 2022, was the hope that they were sort of reached an agreement with China. They couldn't because they were pressured not to do so. Or let me rephrase this. They were not given the green light to do so because Australia doesn't have sovereignty. Let's say it's straightforward. So now the trade sanctions imposed by China on Australia, so on a range of commodities. Yeah, that's what the government in Canberra is not disclosing to us. This is what Robbie is going to discuss with us on Monday, because he doesn't shy away from discussing the truth also. So, and this is why they will try, why Prime Minister incompetent Albo went to New Zealand to pull New Zealand into that camp. And to put this in a much bigger picture, I'm going to focus on the trade between New Zealand and China. Okay? So, just listen carefully, guys. China is New Zealand's largest trading partner in goods and second largest overall, including trade in services. So, in the year ended, you go back a few years. I'll go back to 2020, I think. Yeah, because I remember reading something about that one. It was about 23% of New Zealand's total goods and services exports, and 16% import by value were from China. So it's not in a single digit, it's in a double digit, which tells you about the trade volume that exists between New Zealand and China. Two-way trades in goods and services with China is worth about $33.4 billion. That was in 2020 or 2019, I'm sorry. So with export worth $20.1 billion and import worth about $13.3 billion on the same year. So this resulted in a trade surplus for New Zealand of $6.8 billion. So the New Zealand-China Free Trade Agreement, known a short acronym of FTA, which was signed, guess when? 2008. When was the trade between New Zealand and Australia signed in? 2009. You see what I'm getting at here, right? So provided much impetus to the trade relationship. This is what's at the heart of why Mahuta had to think twice about shutting the door about the AUKUS altogether. Because in addition to, of course, wanted to remain nuclear-free zone, she saw what's coming. I don't need to remind you. As a matter of fact, I will remind you. Let me first, before I forget here, I need to share with you another image here before I send you the link, because you need to. This is the Mahuta, this is Jacinda, this is the liar Scott Morrison, and this is, I think, the governor for the local government in New Zealand. So let me send you the link, guys, so you can read the article, and I highly recommend you reading it when you get a chance. It's very, very, very important. And that's how you gain knowledge, guys. It's by educating and informing yourself so you will know. So the idea of what was the other one I wanted to share with you? The other one I want to share with you is France experiments in Pacific. It was horrific. Nuclear. I'm trying to get in the exact location for this one here. So what France did, which known for its nuclear experiments in the Pacific region, all of it. So Canopus, it's called Opération Canopus. That's a French word for the code name. It was a code name for the first French two-stage thermonuclear. It was conducted by the Pacific Carrier Battle Group, nicknamed as Alpha Force, which was in August 1968. So I had an image somewhere. I don't know where did I put it, but it's okay if I can get it here. But I did save it somewhere. Maybe I didn't upload it. So I don't want to waste the time here. So the idea of thinking in terms of what the French were doing. So yeah. Oh, I found it. I found the. I'm gonna send you guys the link. So what happened basically? You know, French Polynesia. You've heard about this. Let me share the screen with you so you'll see. It's horrible. It's horrible, and I think the yeah. Look at this one, guys. Share. Yeah, right there. This is the image. Yeah, this is the image of the French experiment in the Pacific. So, and by the way, just FYI, France, okay, conducted about 193 nuclear tests between 1966 and 1996. 1966, 1996, 193 nuclear tests. And they were tested at Morora and Fangatova atolls in French Polynesian, and those including 41 atmospheric tests until 1974. Okay, that's one. And I'm gonna share the links with you guys so you can take a look at it later on. Let me actually copy the link and share it with you right now, so you can read it. You can read it later on if you like, just to understand. So this is why it's important to understand this dynamics of why Mahuta had to make the decision. It wasn't about fear of China or whatever. No, it wasn't about that. It was about putting the welfare of the people. And when I say people, I'm not referring to the Maoris. I'm referring to New Zealanders as a whole. Because remember, New Zealand is not a huge country. It's very small. Okay? And to them, they live in peace. They don't mind. As a matter of fact, one of the channel's viewers, and I'm going to share what he puts here. I'm assuming it's okay with him if I do that, because I don't like just to assume. I like to ask permission first. So Dennis wrote, and I quote, "New Zealand may only be a tiny country, but we have always been staunch in our values. And you just get to look at our history. We are hardcore protesters and have stood against big bully countries in the past. For example, the French bombing in the South Pacific apartheid, and banning the US nuclear warships from our ports. Other than that, we mind our own business and get on with it." Thank you so much for sharing this. It says a lot. And just to highlight to you, this is the type of, by the way, the viewers we have in this channel. This is why I have no tolerance for those when people put some very stupid comments, especially when insulting my guests. So please, once again, refrain from that, or I'm going to just block you permanently. Because my guests are my responsibility. My viewers are my responsibilities. Your time means a lot to me. So, and I don't like your time to be wasted. So please, if you have something of importance to share, please do so. If not, please get off. Simple as that. So let's go back to our topic here. So the idea that Mahuta is thinking about her people. Yes, that's true. Is thinking about the trade. Yes, that's true. But also do not get sort of lost that, oh, New Zealand is a saint. New Zealand is a member of the Five Eyes. Oh, also. So that is very important to understand. The Five Eyes. What do I mean by this? This is an intelligence alliance comprising of Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, and the United States. These countries are parties to the multilateral US-UK agreement, a treaty for joint cooperation in signal intelligence. We call it here in the intelligence community as SIGINT. So anytime you hear the term SIGINT, it's a reference to signal intelligence. But beside the point, they can be a member of the Five Eyes if they want to. That's their prerogative. What matters here, guys, is that they took a stand. New Zealand, that is, took stand when it matters. It's when it matters that leadership is tested. It's not enough to just have, photo ops with the prime ministers, like the incompetent Albo taking pictures with the president, the sort of demented president of the United States, Joe, which he needs to really retire, man. Come on. It's a pathetic in our government. When you look at Congress, the top high-ranking members of Congress are over 80 years of age. Nothing against older people, but come on. To me, put an age limit on serving as a president of the United States. Put it as cap it at 70 or 75. And doesn't matter, sharp or not, 75 is the cutoff. You got 80, 83 years old in Congress still serving. Some of them don't even know where they are. And I'm making fun of this, but it's the truth. It's reality. So when a leader will think only of photo ops because I'm taking a picture with this, I'm taking a picture with that, it's useless. When you can think about the welfare of your people. And I see examples here. Canada with the dictator Trudeau, the incompetent Sunak, which, by the way, I just find out that he now benefiting from an investment that he has access to as far as the knowledge, known as inside trading, making about $500 million. How are you serving the British people? You look at the incompetent Olaf Scholz of Germany, how weak and pathetic. You look at the new Prime Minister of Italy. We all thought that she was something. She turns out to be a fraud. She couldn't take stand when she was pressured to leave the Belt and Road Initiative. She said, yes, sir. Then you look at the incompetent Prime Minister Albo of Australia, what he's doing to Australia. I mean, don't even get me started on Japan. Don't get me started on South Korea. Don't get me started on Philippines. It's just pathetic. Yes, we understand that New Zealand is part of the Five Eyes. Yes, it is. But at the same time, when it matters, it showed leadership. Mahuta took stand and said no. Looked at the Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, in his eyes and said, no, we are not going there. I am sure they're going to be pressured by some other means. I am sure, for example, I can give you just an example. As one who works in Washington, we know how these dynamics work. We're going to limit the sharing of intelligence information with New Zealanders. We could do that. We could also foment some, I don't know, we could even lie and said, hey, we just noticed a submarine near your waters, when in reality there was no submarines to begin with. It's because will be withholding the intelligence anyway. We could make things up. So I'm not saying that New Zealand is a saint. No, it is not. But again, they are free to choose where they want to be. They wanted to be in the Five Eyes Alliance. More power to them. But also they didn't want to be part of AUKUS. So that brings me back to another country, India. This is why they're going to have the no confidence vote on Modi. And I am going to do a video. I don't care what others write down, that I don't know what I'm talking about. It's beside the point. It's because the truth is coming out. As we always say, the truth will prevail. Well, here's the truth is coming out about India. That All these years, the Prime Minister Modi has accomplished zero, nothing of substance. So this is where the issue is, that not the issue rather, but this is where the idea of understanding why Mahuta had to make that decision. And speaking of Mahuta, what I'm thinking about, I found out that the former, I got a picture for you guys here because you need to see it. This is another incompetent. Yeah, don't get fooled. I respect New Zealanders' opinions and all that, but she is another yes, sir, yes, ma'am. She was ordered to embark on certain policies, especially when it comes down to the World Economic Forum. And she couldn't take the heat. That's why she ended up resigning, not being burnout. No. Don't get fooled. And you know what she's been given as a reward? She's now been given a professorship at Harvard University, which Harvard, by the way, has a dark side nobody knows about because it's not disclosed. I don't need to tell you. Go read or look at history about, for example, the MK Ultra, the program that the CIA was conducted in Harvard. Harvard, not just Harvard. Let's not point fingers just at Harvard. You got some dark universities in the US, those elites. I can name Harvard, I can name Columbia, I can name Vanderbilt, I can name Stanford. You got some. That's why I always say, I gave up on teaching full time. Forget about it. Because what are you going to teach? They won't even let you. They want you just to stand there and read the slides to the students. They don't want you to engage them intellectually so you can see what are they made of intellectually here. Those are the next generation. And they couldn't even understand. And I am supposed to cater to them? You don't cater to the weak. You don't. Especially when it comes down to intellectual capabilities. So here she is now, has been given a professorship, along with another, what I don't even know what's the word, pathetic, the mayor of Chicago, Lightfoot. Are they even qualified to teach? First of all, where are the credentials? Yeah, credentials matter. And that's my point. And by the way, I did find a link tied Jacinda Ardern to World Economic Forum. Let me hope I found it here. Yep, I found it, guys, right here. Here is one advice for you. Later on, after this show is over, go take a look. Go take a look, because you're going to see some letters dated way back, communication between Jacinda Ardern and Klaus Schwab. And some of those letters were coded. Okay? 2017, you can even go before that. Yeah, just take a look. I posted the link for you guys to read up that later on. So this is my point in all this, guys, is to understand. For Mahuta, you admire her. I admire her. I admire her because it extends when it matters. Because the leadership is tested when it matters. It's like for us in the military, you look at a 2-star or 3-star general. Well, yes, you're general. So what if you couldn't lead by example? Are you going to just be barking orders when you couldn't do it yourself? To me, that's how I look at it. I can't tell people what to do if I couldn't do it myself, and I need to do it first in front of them. This is, by the way, what I'm going to be sharing with you when I start the new channel about health stuff. I'm only going to share with you what I do. I can't be just telling you, you need to go do this or do that. No. I ain't gonna do that. So for Mahuta, is the idea that, here an opportunity presents itself, meeting with the Secretary of State, who asked her to join AUKUS, and she said, no, we're not gonna do that. That is not in the best interest of our people. And this is why you see, for example, in Europe is gone except for one guy. And you know who that guy is? Is the Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban. By the way, be on the lookout on a video I'm going to release for you. It's a bombshell. Yeah. Why? Because he took stand. Now we are punishing him. He's going to prevail. He's going to prevail. So this is where I see the argument, and because we need to understand where this is headed as far as leadership matters. Leadership matters, and especially when it comes down to geopolitics, because she's thinking not about next year. She's thinking about the next 10, 15 years. Because if Australia thinks things going to go back to normal, forget about it. As a matter of fact, I'm going to share this with you. I don't know if it made it to the news or not, because I don't read the news. I don't trust the news. I have my sources where I get the info. The Pentagon made a decision now. We're going to be assigning, listen carefully, we're going to be assigning defense analysts, going to be sitting in the joint task force inside Australia's Department of Defense. You know what it means, right? That means the final product, the final analysis will be done by an American, not an Australian. And after all the decisions regarding Australia are made in Washington, not in Canberra. So New Zealand, to tie it back to our topic here, New Zealand wants to avoid all this, while still a member of the Five Eyes, but still, he wants to remain independent of any influence from outside, allies or not. This is why, and when I brought up the history of France doing the nuclear testing, the horrible things they've done. As a matter of fact, certain areas still suffering from all the radiation that didn't go. This is why now the French President Emmanuel Macron is barking so loud at Niger. Some, by the way, pronounce it Niger. It's Niger. So he threatened to launch a military. He threatened to sort of conduct military operations. Niger threatened by stopping the export of uranium altogether. And yes, even the whole Europe might suffer from this. I just did an analysis about uranium. Be on the lookout for a video. I'm going to do this. And this was, by the way, a request from a specific company that they asked me to do so. So be on the lookout for it. I hope you guys watch that one. Please make sure to take a look at it. And I will let you know when that time comes for it to be uploaded. So this is in a nutshell what I wanted to share with you, is to put this in perspective about Mahuta. I really admire her. You wish some other leaders will take stand, show some courage, because to me all it means, basically, literally, if you compare her to this, look at that, there is no comparison. You can't. The guy is so weak beyond belief. So it's unbelievable. And this is what you are noticing now. It's nothing new. I've been talking to you about this stuff for a long time now, guys. We noticed how it was in Europe, or how it is in Europe. It doesn't show any signs of change anyway. As long as Europe's still under the US thumb, nothing will change. That's just the way I see it. And it will remain for foreseeable future. No matter what you hear about France saying, well, we need to have an independent security force. But it's nothing but hypes. No more, no less. There are no leaders in the West left. You take the exception of Viktor Orban. And as I said, be on the lookout for the video that I'm going to release. It will be a bombshell. And I'm going to do the video about the no confidence vote on Modi, because that's need to be brought up. So, of course, Indian people needs to decide whether they want him in office or not. It's not my place. It's not our place, guys. It's not our place. We are not from India. We don't live in India. We don't have a say into that. But what we have a say in is providing facts. And that's what I'm doing in this channel here. So, as always, I appreciate your support. Please make sure to become a channel supporter or member. Let's hit that 100 number so quick here, so I can do the exclusive Q&A for you and share the surprise. And as I always tell you guys, it's just me here. I will appreciate your support. It means a lot. It takes me time to conduct the research. That's why I gave up the full-time teaching position, because this, I believe in it from the depth of my heart. That's why I'm here. Let me answer one question for you, and I am going to go get on some other things that I need to do. And I appreciate, guys, the civil discord in maintaining this in place. I really appreciate it. All right, let me see if I see Q&A question. Speaking while I'm thinking about it, there's now a lot of conversation inside Australia. They really want Paul Keaton to go back and serve again. What are you saying here, man? I can't read Latin face. Purple crying. Yeah. Yeah, no need for stuff like that. All right, I'm looking to see if there is a question, guys. All right, I'm scrolling up. All right, no question here. I gotta move on. I hope you guys find this very informative, and I look forward to seeing you next time. I am gonna be doing the video, as I said, about India. I'm gonna be doing. There is one story I'm working on right now. I usually don't like to disclose this till I confirm, first of all, the veracity of it. Then second, I will announce it for you. Just be on the lookout for some videos. And I really appreciate your support. It means a lot to me. So as I grow this channel here. So as always, guys, remember, geopolitics impact your daily life in more ways than one. Till next time, guys. Bye-bye.